Okay, I show 7 o'clock. Does everybody else show 7? Yeah, call the meeting to order. I won't usually be leading this part. I think you'll find someone else to do it, but I thought it'd be good if we just started to say who we were and either who appointed you to be on the committee or which ward you're in. My name is Lisa Toll, and I am the liaison from, I don't know if that's a proper word, from City Council. So I'm the member from City Council, and I live in Ward 2. Anybody want to jump in?
I'll go. Go ahead.
Go for it, Tara. You got this.
All right. I'm Tara Adler. I'm in Ward 1. I was actually appointed by the mayor. I'm excited to be included in this committee, so thanks for having me.
Awesome. I am also Ward 1, and I am Jessica Loya, and I was chosen by Bryant DeLong. This committee is really important, and I'm really excited to jump in and get started.
I'm Bess Bailey. I was appointed by Zach Clevenger from Ward 3. I'm really excited to be here.
And speaking of Ward 3, I'm April Jones. That's also where I'm from, and I was appointed by Rick Stewart.
Hi, it's Gabby Flores. I'm in Ward 2, and I was appointed by our Honorable Lisa Tull here with us. So we're neighbors, or close by. Thanks for having me tonight.
Hello, I'm Yvonne Salinas. I'm in Ward 4. I was Amy Clark. Thank you.
Brandy, have you gone yet?
No, I haven't. Sorry, my apologies. My name is Brandy Alexander. Please forgive me. I forgot the name of the gentleman who appointed me, and that is very bad. So please forgive me for that. I am new to North Kansas City, so I don't know which ward I represent. Please forgive me for that.
No worries.
It's all good.
Tony Saper was, I think, who appointed
That's
Brandy.
correct, Mr. Saper.
Yeah.
Please forgive me.
Oh, okay. So you're Ward 1 too, then, I believe.
Yes, Ward 1.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so we are all new. And one of the things we're going to need to do is kind of appoint who would lead the meetings, who the secretary will be, those types of things. I won't be running the meetings. In fact, we want to make sure that it's led by you guys. And I can be your link. Well, so is Eric back to City Council. And I'll be here to answer any questions and I'll give my input, but I really want this to be driven by you. So I'm going to stop being the one that's doing the leading. If anybody wants to speak up on their experience or something they think that they would really like to do for the committee, as in being the secretary or somebody who leads the meetings.
What does secretary encompass?
You would be taking the minutes. So like I'm doing it today. I'm writing down who all is here and the wards that they were in, and we did the introduction, and then I'll just keep the minutes and those can be sent out. I believe, Eric, are the minutes available will those be published?
Yes, they will. So after each, you would approve the minutes of the previous meeting at a subsequent meeting. And then after that, then they will be available for the public and anybody else to see.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you so much. And for anybody who's tuning in and watching this live, this meeting is going to be all about getting set up. So this is our very first meeting. We aren't going to be, our purpose today is to get things set up. So if you're tuning in and you're wanting to wait for more deep discussions, that'll be at our next meeting. Because one of the next things we need to do is decide, this committee's meeting every month. So we have to decide what time and what day that would be from here on out is another thing that we need to do.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
I just have a quick clarifying question, Jess. Sorry to interrupt.
You're good.
I didn't have a chance to review the document that was sent out yesterday that's kind of like the guiding, guidelines or what have you. Is there like some guidance? Do we have to establish a charter, or is there a charter template that we might use from other committees that would help us identify, like, is there expectations around 100% attendance, 50% attendance, those kinds of things? Because I think that might help determine our meeting date and time and frequency.
Okay. Yes. Well, when people signed up, we said it was going to be a monthly meeting. You can change that, of course, but I know that when you signed on, you were told that it was a monthly meeting. So increasing the frequency, I don't know if that would be a problem for anybody. If you can pull it up in your email, or I can tell you how to get there. If you go to nkc.org and they have the heading at the top is government, departments, residents. You hover over government and it pulls up another menu. And in the third column, at least for me, there's a board and commissions. So you click on that, and the board and commissions handbook is the second red highlighted item. And then you can open that, and it has general information at the start. It's actually called general information. And then it has information about the Sunshine Law, which I guess that would be part that we would want. We might even just want to, as you guys peruse, I might just read the Sunshine Law to you while you do that. Does everybody have the handbook? Are they able to pull it up? Because this is when somebody was saying, oh, we only need 5 or, whatever. And Eric stopped because we were just making introductions and started to talk about our organization. And we said, no, wait, you have to wait until 7. So I'm going to read the Sunshine Law while you guys pull up the information. Yeah.
Can you restate again which tab it's under? I'm sorry, I wasn't fast enough.
No. Thank you for stopping me. Please. Thank you for doing that. Okay. So you pull up nkc.org, you hover over government, and then there is a green heading under there called boards and commissions. Yes. And you click on that. And then in red, the second red item is boards and commissions handbook.
Got it. Thank you.
Got it? Okay. So I'm just going to read about the Sunshine Law, just so we are all on the same page there. The City Council appoints at least one of its members to be a liaison to each board or commission within the city government. That's me. And then also Eric. Whether the council member is active, or he would be staff, whether the council member is actively involved in the group's discussion depends somewhat on the nature of the work that the board or commission performs, as well as the desires of its members. Most city and of North Kansas City boards and commissions have at least one city staff. So I'm the liaison and Eric is the staff member assigned. This will usually be a department director or division manager from the department most closely aligned with the activities of the particular board or commission. City staff members assigned to assist the board or commission handle the required administrative duties. Staff is responsible for providing an agenda to guide formal meetings, preparing staff reports, and providing analysis of and technical data needed to develop recommendations for the city council, handling correspondence and clerical assistance, and taking and maintaining minutes to serve as the official records of boards or commission activities. All government entities and their boards and commissions must comply with the Missouri Sunshine Law. The law requires all meetings of boards or commissions to be open to the public. It also requires that meeting dates and times be posted at City Hall at least 24 hours prior to the meeting, exclusive of weekends and holidays. So when we got the email that said, you're going to have a link to this meeting, but don't pass out your link because that's just for you. But if you wanted to send people a link to watch, you can find that under meetings and agendas. So ours was posted when I looked Tuesday, it was up. It may have been up earlier, but when I looked on Tuesday, it was up. And that would just be a general login for everyone else. So, and I can take you through and show you how to do that later if you need me to, or feel free to email me about any of this stuff and I can do it another time as well. Where did I leave off? Okay, anyone attending a board meeting from the public should be able to hear what is going on. Depending upon the rules and procedures of a given board or commission, however, the public does not necessarily have the right to participate in those discussions. The law allows for boards and commissions to conduct closed sessions, but only for very specific subjects, such as the purchase of real estate, discussion of a specific lawsuit, or personnel issue. These categories rarely apply to city boards or commissions. So even though today is going to be kind of a messy day and we're just putting everything together, that's why it has to be public. The city of North Kansas City believes very strongly that all boards and commissions have the responsibility not only to honor the letter of the Sunshine Law, but to honor the spirit of the law as well. Okay. All right. So, anybody interested in being secretary? We're just gonna raffle that one off at the end, I guess.
So what if we do, so just in looking at other cities and how their diversity boards, equity and inclusion committees, whatever, how their bylaws broke it down, they actually had a voting system, which is actually included in the bylaws. So what if we, one, did we establish a date? Do we want to start there?
Sure, start wherever you want to start.
Okay, is there
I am
any
handing this over.
consensus on a date? I am basically free any evening after 6. I know that. Do we want to just kind of go in like a, I don't know how we do this. Anybody else? What are your guys' available days? Or
Is there
actually,
anyone who has days they're not available?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't do Tuesdays because of city council meetings, and Eric wouldn't be able to either.
Yeah,
Okay.
Tuesdays aren't good for me either.
Okay.
Mondays are not good for me.
I'm free any evening after 6, just like Jessica.
Okay.
Yvonne, unmute and share out, friend.
I was just gonna suggest that we keep it the first Thursday of the month, 7th, like we are.
If that works for everybody, that works for me.
Works for me.
All right, first Thursday.
All right.
Is it typically an hour meeting? Is it, I mean, or is it dependent on the agenda?
So I think it'll probably depend on the agenda. If there's something that we don't work out and we want to keep it to an hour, I do know we have the ability to call like special meetings. I don't know if that's good. Like, so let's say that we had something, it took us an hour and a half. We all have things we need to go get done. We could potentially just table it and then call a special meeting, which I think also with the Sunshine Law, we have to do the same thing. Like it can't be less than 48 hours notice or something like that.
Yeah, it was 48 hours.
24 hours.
No, 24. There it is, 24 hours.
Oh, wow. Okay, 24 hours notice. So if we wanted to keep it at around an hour just to like make it easier for everyone, then yeah, we could probably do that. I don't know if we have to set that limit or not, but just to kind of make it easy.
Hey, Eric, is it okay with you and staff if it's at the same time as Planning Commission?
I thought Planning
Yeah.
Commission was at 6.
Well, that's true too. Planning Commission is at 6. It can extend it to 7, but Planning
Okay.
Commission doesn't meet on every first Thursday. They meet when there's items to do. So,
Okay.
in general, I would say if that's when you want to have your meetings, that we can handle that.
Okay. So I heard a couple people say anytime after 6.
Mhm.
So does that mean 6 or 6:15 or 6:30 works?
Do we?
The only
okay.
reason why I'm asking, I mean, we can keep it 7. The only reason why I'm asking is because I know Steven's in the office, that the staff have to have this prepared. So I'm sure it's a really long day for them, but it's just a question. If it worked for everybody, I'd say we move it up, but if it doesn't, it doesn't.
I'm okay with that, but if it is at 6, then we are occasionally overlapping with the Planning Commission then. And as long as that works for them, that's fine with me.
So if I may, the way that I hope that it would be okay with this committee, that we don't televise your meetings. They are, well, first of all, whenever we get out of this COVID protocol, you would meet live.
Be meeting in person, yeah.
So I think we can handle whatever time you like.
Okay, all right.
Whatever
I just
convenient.
wanted to be respectful of your time, but if it's, yeah, looking at it as temporary, it works for everybody. I'm gonna write it down then, okay? First Thursday at 7, correct?
7 or
Everybody's
6.
gotta.
Yep.
7,
Okay.
okay, I'm doing first Thursday at 7.
And again, our thought would be that while we're in this COVID protocol, we would do them on Zoom, but that we would not plan on televising, because if we have to televise it, we have to have a person there at City Hall operating in the control room. And that, as opposed to having somebody, Stephen's at home right now, working
good.
would be much better. So
Yeah, that's great.
okay.
Okay. So now that we've got a day, time, everything else that we're talking about, it would technically be covered in the bylaws. So like I said, I did a little bit of homework. I really like to do my homework. I don't want to overwhelm you guys with information, but I tend to be very information heavy, which I feel is important to get out right away. But the basic breakdown of the bylaws was Article 1, Article 2, Article 3, and then sections. Article 1 was generally the purpose of the committee. I did see some of them chose the name, which I think is kind of redundant. We know our name. But so either definitions. So for us, we could do definitions of diversity, equity, inclusion, what all those things mean for our committee and how we kind of plan to use that as we go forward. And then purpose for me, when I was looking at the other committees or other boards and what we're trying to do, the purpose is essentially this section of the city ordinance, which says what our proposed objectives are. Which
Do you want me to read those? Or do you want to read
Go
those,
for
or does everybody have them in front of them? It was the ordinance that I emailed out on the second page. It says purpose and objectives of the committee. And it's
I sort of
the
broke
rest of
them
that page.
down, but if you want to read them all.
No, go ahead.
right in
No,
front
go
of
ahead. I
me.
just wanted to make sure everybody had them so that you can see them, so you know what she's talking about, because if not, I can email it to you again real quick.
I would read them out loud just from a inclusive, if we're talking about diversity and inclusion, reading them out loud as a equity
As in
situation.
case people are watching.
Okay.
Yep.
Very good thought.
Like it. So do you want to read them as they are? I have A through I, and I just kind of, most of them are word for word, but some of them were just kind of short
Yeah, go ahead.
version. Okay.
Yeah.
A was promote greater diversity in the city, recommending various initiatives and actions to the mayor and city council. B, assist the city in implementing strategic initiatives proposed by the committee.
Pause just a second. Do you have these written down?
I do.
Okay, can you email them or send me a picture later so I don't have to write them all down?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna mute myself now.
Okay, it's actually, you have them, I believe, in your Google Docs.
It's the same as the Google Doc?
I think it was I'll send it to you.
Okay.
So where were we? C, promote participation in activities that support equity and inclusion. D, communicate equity and inclusion initiatives to the council. Oh, wait, no. See, that was one that's wrong. Do you have D in front of you by chance?
I do. D is communicate equity and inclusion initiatives, actions, and results to the city council.
Okay. E, assist the mayor and city council in using diversity, equity, and inclusion to establish economic empowerment in the city. F, advise and make recommendations to the mayor and council regarding practices and programs that will enhance the community and develop diverse, equitable, and inclusive practices. G, Oh, G is the North Kansas City Equity and Inclusion Strategic Plan. So basically, we would be drafting and presenting a plan that we develop to the mayor and city council on. So that's like a whole nother discussion, but yes, that's one of our main goals. So I feel like that one might be one that we want to go ahead and include in our bylaws, but that one was pretty important. H, make recommendations for widespread and ongoing diverse public involvement and assist city council by advising on how to bridge the gap between residents and the government body, and how they can help participate in the decision-making process. I is review the city codes for the purpose of making recommendations for suggested changes and modifications to the city code, which I think is also probably another important one. So like personally for me, maybe we don't include all of these, but I definitely think G, so the Equity and Inclusion Strategic Plan, is really important. H and I, so getting the community involved, that's like one of the main purposes of this. And I was reviewing the city code to make sure that it is like equitable and diverse and inclusive. But those were all of them.
I think it might be important to do C too.
Okay.
Program part.
And some of those can probably be combined, like condensed and combined into.
Some of them are mildly redundant. I will say that. Okay. So, and then there were some like other random things that, so like, could we break it down to public engagement, city practices, housing and livability, public safety, economic empowerment, community building and inclusion? Those were kind of like, I summed everything up in a different way, but like those were our main goals. I don't know how we would want to.
You went a little bit too fast for me. Can you say it one more time?
Okay, so basically summing up all of the things that we just discussed was like public engagement, city practices. I added housing and livability because, well, there were some concerns. There's been some residents who have discussed issues with landlords and things like that. So I figured this is probably the committee, like we are probably the ones who can do something about that, or at least advise council on doing something about that. Public safety, economic empowerment, and community building and inclusion. So it was just like 6 little categories.
Can I ask a question before we get too far down the rabbit hole of bylaws? It's a question related to the handbook to me is this is how all the other city committees function. Are there any other committees that have bylaws? So that's question 1.
That was also my question earlier, was trying to figure that piece out.
Because the way that the handbook's laid out is like they have a very simple description and what I would call a charter of each committee. And bylaws to me feels much deeper, heavier, legal. And so I just wonder if we're going to be an outlier, not functioning like the rest of the city committees, do we want to try and come up with something mean and lean like what's in the handbook, and then think about, kind of our guidelines for our practices later down the road as we evolve? So just a thought.
Yeah, I know Parks and Rec has bylaws. I'm not sure how to go and find it.
Yeah, I would like to see something like that before we would dive into.
You might want to just search NKC Parks and Rec bylaws. Usually they tend to like pop up weirdly.
This is Eric Berlin. We can provide those bylaws to you.
Okay.
The Parks Board. I'm not sure if the planning commission has bylaws or not, but if they do, we can provide those to you as well.
Because that's different than what's in the handbook that was sent out to us.
Would it be helpful for people to see an example of what bylaws could look like? I think for me, it makes more sense to go more robust sooner and then come up with the shorter draft that appears in the the handbook for boards. That's how my thought process goes. I've got an example from the Equity and Inclusion Advisory Council bylaws for East Tennessee State University, just as of an idea of what they could look like. By no means is this exclusive or the best out there, but it is easy to read.
Definitely. If you could,
Okay.
Can you email that to us?
I can share the link in the chat if that's okay. Eric, is that all right?
Yes, that would be fine.
Great, thank you. Okay, there's the link. I just did a quick Google search and this was what came up as, I think, the first option.
Are bylaws fluid, or do we have to vote? Are they ratified?
Oh, my.
Okay, so that's in the bylaws. So
Okay,
if we break it down, we would essentially break it down. Article 1, purpose. What is our purpose? What are we doing? We don't have to make it super complicated or include too much. We kind of just want to include enough so that people know who we are, what we're doing, and it kind of specifies for us like a path to move forward. Article 2 would essentially be like membership. So, which we already kind of know. There's 9 of how we're appointed, whatever. But also in membership would be the membership like terms, so appointments, removal, I guess. If we ever needed to remove a member for some reason, we might want to discuss that. That might be in the bylaws. And then the roles, which would essentially be like secretary, potentially a chairperson and a vice chairperson. And then we could also put attendance in there, even though we don't really have any like hard and fast rule about that. We just kind of want to be at as many meetings as we can be, unless we're sick. But then, so that's Article 1 and 2, purpose, membership. Article 3 would be like power and limits, which would be like what exactly we can do, which is pretty simple. We can advise council. And then, but not only that, it would probably include things like voting, like if we have a discussion and we vote with us, like how that voting takes place. And then, so I think like Article 4 would be like amending the bylaws. So, which other cities seem to do pretty simply, which was just proposing it, majority vote. A lot of, so I don't know, I kind of wanted to ask that question. Do we need to include, like, as you said, like the bylaws are very like legal. Do we need to include the city attorney in on things that we do like this? Does he need to look this over and approve it? Do we know?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
It might not be a bad idea. In general, though, your bylaws are your bylaws, but if, just to make sure that you're not putting in anything in there that's extra legal, it might not be a bad idea before you take a final vote on some bylaws to run it by him and just make sure that there are no concerns.
And I can do that if you'd like me to.
That'd be awesome. But basically what I'm saying is like other cities broke it down really simply. It was like, here's these 5 things, here's these little subcategories. And then for us, like some other things. So I know other cities put in their like roles of staff liaison and council liaison, which we definitely have. Meeting times, which again, we just kind of established. And then
Is there a term?
the other thing, what's up?
Sorry, is there a term?
2 years.
2 years, okay.
Mhm.
Well,
And they're
it's
staggered, so
eventually
some of
2
us-
years for everybody. That's not how this first year is set up. So we don't want an entire new council every 2 years. So if your person that that puts you up for this meeting, if they're going to be voted on this year, then it's a 1-year term. And if they're going to be voted on, like I'm at the very beginning of mine, so Gabby, you would be on a 2-year term, but obviously we're not matching when the elections take place. So we could say whatever you want, like 1 year from whatever date or 2 years from whatever date. But it was written that way just so that we wouldn't have an entirely new committee every 2 years. And if there's, I mean, now that we're all on the committee, I don't know, I guess I shouldn't say this since I'm not sure. I'll just stop. It was supposed to be attached to the person who put you up there, but we could have some people like, yeah, I'll take the 1 year. No, I'd really like to do the 2 year if I'm going to do it at all. I don't know if we could shuffle people in that way, but The whole
I
idea
can,
was
I
that,
can go through, Lisa. We did do it, if you don't mind. I'm sorry, this is Eric. I
no,
can
I don't mind.
just tell you what we've got, and it is based upon what you just said.
Mhm.
So what we have assumed is that Jessica Loya was appointed for an initial 1-year term, Brandy Alexander for a 2-year term, Gabriela Flores for a 2-year term, April Jones for a 1-year term, Bess Bailey for a 2-year term, Yvonne Salinas for a 2-year term, and Tara Adler for a 1-year term. All that based upon how much longer their particular council member or mayor who appointed them had in office.
And so we have to stick to that, right?
I think it's
Well,
only, I don't.
you know, I don't, that's what you had indicated, Lisa, was the intention. So that's, and you did want
Yeah.
staggered terms. So I would suggest that if you, yes.
Okay, yeah, okay, that's what I thought. So,
And I think my understanding too, at least I think I might have discussed it with Bryant, was like, if you did your 1-year term, so those of us who have like a 1 year, if we did our 1 year and we essentially wanted to like continue, we would just like reapply, and that would be up to the council
Yeah.
members, et cetera.
yeah.
So there's no
And
like,
that's how it was, and that was how it was written in the ordinance. So that's like on page 3, I think, of the ordinance. That was just our idea, was that so we didn't refresh everybody at the same time.
And there's no term limit, right? So if,
Not unless you guys decide to put one in.
I feel like that is something that a committee could do if they found a problem later. I don't think we need to, like, my thing is if it's working, it's working. So why not just let people continue if they want to reapply. But again, it's not up to us. It's up to the council members. So even if we serve a year, reapply, but they had 5 other people apply for it, they might just choose to pick one of those other people, which wouldn't be bad. But I don't know if we should put like a cap on it, at least
No,
not now.
I just ask because sometimes committees can get stagnant without new blood rolling in. And if you really, one of our focuses is going to be community engagement, that's, you know, like you want to create that space for people to be able to come in and engage at the city level, right? So I don't think it's a, you know, it can always be, you know, fixed later.
I mean,
still
that's
very
valid.
good.
What if we did, so what would you guys suggest on a term limit?
So for our, for the nonprofit board, through Ronald McDonald House, the board limit is a 6-year term. So that it could be three terms, which is a significant amount of time, but it would allow still enough time to get a lot done, but also to Gabriella's point, it can get stagnant. And if we, you know, for in 10 years, we're all still on this committee, we're probably not doing what we're supposed to.
Probably a problem.
Yeah.
Okay, so do we want to do 3? We could do 2, which would keep it at 4 years, right?
I like the 3 terms, right? She says I like the 3-term idea.
Okay.
I mean, I think for this first round, especially, we're not gonna make magic happen in a couple years here. These things take time. So I mean, 6 years feels like enough time to really make an impact, but also an opportunity for all of us to be able to engage with our community and find people that might be willing to help and jump in too.
Okay. So I guess my question is, so if we are creating bylaws, do we want to, so term limits would definitely be with membership. So do we want to pick like 5 articles? So whatever purpose, membership. I mean, really, what do we need? So I guess that's what I'm trying to figure out. So what do we want to do as far as these bylaws? I feel like we can get them done pretty easily. I don't think we need to make it too overly complicated.
I think that just from experience using Robert's Rules of Order, I know some of this stuff is kind of obvious, but we definitely need to include our name. We have to. The mission, we need that. goals, we need that because we've got that outlined. Like you said, it's gonna be pretty easy. Membership is gonna include a lot of details. So membership needs to be one, like you said, and then we'll go into extra details from there based off of what either we come up with or what we already have. And then I like responsibilities on there because then it kind of outlines behaviors maybe.
Okay.
We need to cover. It is important for us to decide how many meetings you need to be at, because if you miss a significant amount of meetings, then that kind of puts the group behind, and we find ourselves having to trail backward to maybe even get you up to speed. But the secretary is going to do that anyway, but just to cover us. And then, like you said, officers and representatives, and then the agenda meetings and minutes and reports. We need to outline when that's going to be sent out and stick to that, because that's important to our community and to us.
So that, I think that goes under meetings with like what day we meet, what are our rules about special meetings, subcommittees, minutes and agenda. Yeah.
Right. And then we do need to have a section, typically in your bylaws, there's a section on when because every organization, sometimes not every, but most organizations do a bylaw review either annually or biannually. So we need to define that, because sometimes goals change, sometimes we run into things, so we need to outline that part too.
I second everything Brandy's saying.
Yep.
But voting procedures, all that type of stuff needs to be in there, just so our community is aware too.
Okay.
Can I
So
ask a quick question? Sorry to keep asking more questions, but I don't know how city government runs, so I'm new to city government stuff. So I'm just thinking, like, in the interest of time, is it possible for two of us to come together and work on the bylaws and then bring them to our next meeting for the larger committee to review as a draft? Because I know there's some regs around, if 3 or more of us get together after hours, it's considered a meeting or something like that. So I just want to make sure that, is that something we could have a few of us parse out some of the work and do it? Because it'll take us 3 meetings to get through bylaws, creating them here, unless some of us go and do the work and then bring it back. So I'm just thinking is that feasible from like city government perspective?
So I am not going to lie, I definitely jumped in and wrote out a draft of the bylaws already, just including all of those things that we just discussed. It just we would need to add, subtract, and kind of like discuss it, figure out what we want to all do. But I definitely didn't know what we were walking into tonight and how prepared we were going to be.
I'm but bylaws and bylaw reviews, so if y'all need help, if we want to come, I'm okay.
Awesome.
There are rules though, like Gabby was saying. I just want to make sure we all know the rules, since we all obviously live pretty close together. And Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, it wasn't in the Sunshine Law that I just read here, but if there were 4 of us discussing committee items, then we would need record of that. But I think if you have 3, you're fine. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay.
And we need 5 to vote, so those are important.
So if 3 people got together, we could essentially come up with.
If 3 people came together, like if we hashed out all the ideas here and 3 people came together and brought a draft to the next meeting. And Eric, it's okay to send out that draft early. We could attach it with the agenda that we posted publicly, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, so it would have to be available for everyone to see, but that way we could all read the draft before the next meeting if it was published with the agenda.
Okay.
Yes, and that would give the public the ability to see it as well.
Mm-hmm.
I volunteer to work on bylaws.
Same, I'm with you, Brandy.
I'm here for it.
Yeah, if anyone or someone else wants it.
I'd really like to do it.
Bess, go ahead.
I mean, to be fair, we're all gonna pick it apart and look it over later. So it really, yeah.
The other thing we could do if we wanted to get a little scrappier with this as an alternative is, instead of a group of 3 people doing all of it, I know there were about 5 or 6 different items we wanted to include as articles, like with headlines of engagement, housing and livability. We could break those into groups so that if people wanted more participation, you could work on as many or as few as you wanted to, but that would allow us to work in groups of 3 rather than that 4 making it an official meeting.
And then those groups could even become our subcommittees too, if we were.
That's true. So my thing, those were only intended to be essentially breaking down the like Article 1 or sorry, either Article 1 or 2, depending on how we do it. Because if we're going to do the name, that would probably be Article 1 name and then North Kansas City Equity and Inclusion Committee. But Article 2 would be purpose. And those 6 things were intended to essentially be a breakdown of the ordinance purposes. So the things that we are the proposed objectives, sorry, in our city ordinances. Instead of listing all of those, I was just trying to like summarize. So we don't have to use those. That was literally just like making those a little bit easier to understand.
To build on what you said, I think the 2 hardest things and probably most important things are going to be your strategic plan and your mission statement.
Mhm.
So if anybody feels passionate about that and you wanted to divide that work or work together, I mean, the strategic plan and our mission statement should really drive the work. At least that's my opinion.
So the strategic plan, is that something that we will, so I will send you guys all a link later to the, it was kind of one of the, like the founding ideas of this entire committee, which was the diversity, it's called DAB, I don't remember, Diversity Advisory Board in Beaverton, Oregon. That was the first equity and inclusion committee, diversity committee that I came across. But their strategic plan was essentially like a year or 2 in the making in the beginning. And it was
Okay. And it looks like, I know
out-
Gabby had her hand up right away and you probably have
I
some
don't-
experience. When I first said that, were you?
Oh, no, I don't want to cut you off, Jess. Go
No,
ahead.
you're good.
Okay.
Oh.
I was just saying, I
Sorry.
want to send that to you guys so you can see how they broke down their strategic plan, because it was like there was quite a bit of work that went into it. So I just wanted everybody to kind of be able to read that. I might've sent that to you already, Gabby. I don't remember. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just kind of shaking my head in agreement with what Jess was saying about that process is going to take quite a lot of time because we don't have any data really yet. And we're going to have to map out what that's going to look like before we can plan what a strategy might be. And so I think maybe definitely, I think this committee is going to have to drive the mission statement like right now, but the strategic plan, I think, to your point, Brandy, about these could potentially be the different work groups or subcommittees, I think is the term you used, that could then help drive the strategic plan, but there could be an interim committee work plan that happens that would map out like what our first year is going to look like. The first 2 months will be charter or bylaws. Then, because like we don't really know what we don't know. I know I don't know. Like I'm sitting here thinking like I know a whole bunch about KCMO. I've lived here for 15 years and I know nothing about NKC at all in terms of like, what are the departments of the city? Do they have a human resources? Like I don't even know the structure of the city to be able to help strategize. And then we don't have any data from our community that I know of that is specific to diversity and inclusion. And so that's something we might have to plan out over time.
So to piggyback on that, I can't tell if anybody's raising their hand, so I'm really sorry. I can only see one of you at a time. But to piggyback on that, exactly, there is very little information available as is. And I feel like that like data mining, that's going to fall on us sort of, which is part of that strategy plan. But like you're saying, like the information isn't necessarily out there and readily available. So figuring out what we're doing going in, like we are just going to need kind of like a basic game plan. Like this is what we want to get done in these first couple of meetings, versus this strategic plan, which is literally going to be it's a pretty big undertaking, and it's probably going to be done a lot outside of these specific meetings. There is a lot of work that'll go into it. And there is definitely, as Gabby is saying, a lot of data finding that we need to do. And to be fair, that when I send you guys that DAB, their plan, they spent, that's basically what they did. They spent, I think it was either a year or 2 years finding data, and then so I don't remember exactly what they called it. Gabby, you might remember, I don't, but it was identifying essentially just identifying holes, identifying places where they could do better based on the data that it took them a very long time to gather. So that strategic plan is going to be, I'm going to say, probably one of the most important things, other than, so we need to definitely create some like platforms for some community involvement. But other than that, like that strategic plan is probably going to be one of the biggest things we do. And that plan essentially outlines so it kind of falls on us to do this because we are the first group, but it will definitely inform the way that this committee works moving forward. So what we do and what we come up with, essentially we will come up with a pretty large document that says, we reviewed the city ordinances, we found this, and this, whatever else it is. And then we'll put that in front of city council, who will then look it over and figure out how they would implement the plan. So we would give them a literal plan, like, hey, we need more open forums. So then we essentially point out the issues and then maybe offer some solutions on like how we can make these things better. And then it would fall on city council as far as how they implement it. And then it takes another year or two to get that plan really like working. And then you do another review. So for us, really, we have like the burden of information finding, data finding, and then pointing out those issues like off the bat. Maybe too much information.
All right.
I think it should include a progress report too. I mean, if we've got measurable goals on there, then, review it every year or so and include a progress report on that to see if any of those goals have been met or how much closer.
And then revise it too, like with that. So you would do a progress report and be like, well, these things aren't working. Like we wanted to do this, it's just not working. So then you would have to reevaluate. So I agree with that. Probably every year, 2 years. I don't really know.
Knowing that it's 7:45 on a Thursday evening, do you guys mind if I drive for just a minute? Great. So I think right now we're getting stuck in between big vision and logistics. And I think that's preventing us from moving forward or being able to start in a strong place for our next meeting. That being said, I would feel really good if we left this time with clear headlines of which articles we'd like to include in our bylaws, so that we can then go and break into small groups of 3 or fewer to really write those out, so that next time we meet, we're able to move forward with getting those bylaws approved. How does that sound for everyone?
Perfect.
Great. So in the chat, I know I don't know about you, but I'm a very visual person. Auditory processing, not my strong suit. We've put out like a bunch of different ideas for what we want to include as articles in our bylaws. Lisa, can you look back into your notes? I know you're taking them so diligently, and just tell us what we've said so far as articles we want in our bylaws, and I'll throw those in the chat so everyone has an opportunity to process them again auditorily as well as visually, if that is helpful for you.
Yes. I'm going to list all of it. There were some ideas given by different people. So we'll start a name, a mission, membership. Is the strategic plan in here or no? Or would it just be a...
That's just a purpose. I think that falls
Okay,
under
got it.
purpose. Or mission,
Okay.
or no, purpose.
There is a purpose. Okay, now I don't know if this is part if these are sections or not. Let me read, don't type these yet. It says public engagement, city practices, housing and livability, public safety, and economic development, which I believe are all under purpose. Is that correct, guys?
I believe that was what Jessica wanted for those ideas. Yes.
Okay. And then progress reports. I wouldn't include the interim plan. That's just something we would do, right? It wouldn't be in the bylaws. That's what I have written down. Am I
So
missing
we
big
have-
chunks?
There was one other. Oh,
Yeah.
we maybe wanted to do meetings so we could break down when we're meeting, things like that. And then I
Well,
don't
and
know
there's
if
some
we-
of that I didn't write down that would, because I was following along with the, what's the word I'm looking for? With the ordinance. So it has powers and duties, membership, the term of office.
Okay, so those would be what, membership terms or membership?
Yeah. So that's
And I
where it
think-
talks about it would be a 2-year term unless it would match the person who put you up for the committee. But being that this isn't starting at the same time that people get elected, I don't know if you guys would like to pick a date or,
And I think these
Brian said
ideas.
January 1st, sorry.
No, you're fine. Yeah, I think there's like an initial date of January 1st is when the committee started. In my head, that would make sense moving forward. But I
Okay.
think part of the discussion that we had is getting into like the nitty gritty of things like membership,
okay,
which is totally fine. And I think those discussions need to happen. But I know that if we start with like bigger picture, what are the articles we want to include? Then we can go break out and get into those nitty gritty details of, well, what do we mean by membership? Is that where we include responsibilities? Is that where we include like all the other pieces, including potentially removal, if that's something we want to do? But looking through the chat, are these like bylaw articles that we've included, do those sound right? Are we missing anything?
So staff roles, do we need to put those in an article? Which would be staff liaison, council liaison, and what their roles are?
I think that would go under membership. And Gabby, I'm so sorry I cut you off. I know you wanted to say something.
I was just going to say that I think that taking a look at the Parks and Rec Committee as well as the other will help inform how we shape ours, right? So they've done this work already. Let's not reinvent the wheel and let's just borrow what good pieces they have and dump them into ours, and then we'll be able to see the gaps of like our purpose, our, you know, the pillars that Jess had defined. We'll be able to then plunk those in. And I just want to share kind of selfishly that this kind of work is not my strong suit. I am much better at doing editing after they're done. So I didn't jump to volunteer to be part of the creator. I'm good at reading and redlining afterwards. So I'm happy to serve in that function. And then I just have one quick question that I think we need resolution tonight before we split up is, you know, I think we started talking about secretary and nobody volunteered, right? But we also need a chair that, I mean, like who does the chair set the agenda?
So the chairperson,
Or
so I wrote down the definition that another city had used. I don't quite know where it is. Vice Chair, Secretary, attendance. The chairperson presides over regular meetings, calls special meetings, and is responsible for preparing the agenda with assistance from a council or city liaison, and represents the committee publicly, may give presentations, etc. Like that's their role.
is
and
that how other city committees work too, Lisa?
well, like Parks and Rec board members that are here, they have a president and a vice president. I think we can do what we want. I know the one that's on the chat, when I looked that up, they have 2 co-chairs. So that might be nice to pick someone with a 1-year term and a 2-year term to be co-chairs in case there is a rollover.
I would like to volunteer to be co-chair.
I'd be more than happy to as well.
Do we vote on this?
We have no process for voting technically, but I second it. I'm with
Okay.
it. Yes.
That's a good thing though. Like, do we need to, is that one of the things that are not in the articles that you were
Well,
talking
that's
about,
why
Bess?
I tabled it earlier, was voting should be put in the articles about how we make decisions, including these. So I didn't know
Okay.
if we would do the articles first. Like, I didn't know if we were going to create everything first and then make that decision. But I think if we all just agree on that, we can agree on that and then figure out voting later.
I mean, you can still define it within the bylaws, right, for the next go round of co-chairs. But I think we need drivers right now.
Well, Jessica, I feel like you put a lot of stuff together.
Agreed,
that-
but I am currently running for city council, which I know would
Okay.
potentially affect this.
Might
if
change
I-
things. Good point.
Yes.
So I heard two
and-
people say yes. That was Brandy and Tara. Was that right? Or was it? I
No,
didn't see
It was
it.
me.
Bess and Brandon.
Bess. Okay. So that works because Bess, you're 2-year and, oh, Brandy's also 2-year.
Hmm.
Should
I think
we?
for now, until we have bylaws, like I'm fine. I'd be more than happy to do this with like as a chair or co-chair until we have bylaws, and then we can come back and always re-vote once we have more established. But as far as driving for the next month or two, I think that'll be really important.
Yep. Okay.
Fall back and help.
Bess and Brandy. I got it.
What do you want? Come here. Nice, sorry.
So I would see the secretary's job as maybe putting together, like actually typing up the agenda if the co-chairs don't do it, taking notes. Those minutes have to be published after they're ratified in the next meeting. So like I'll write these up and then they'll be sent out with the agenda and you guys will have to approve them. Like, yes, that's what happened.
Yeah.
Oh, and I'm not the person to do it because I forgot that I'm supposed to write down that you guys voted on it and everybody said yes, right? Yeah, to the co-chairs? Everybody was a yes? Okay. Yes, don't make me the secretary, guys.
To be fair, I guess I should say, is there anyone else who wanted to be a co-chair? And maybe we make the decision that way, because I know I didn't hear from April or Tara. I also can't see you guys, so I don't know if you guys are like raising your hands.
Or
Makes it
Yvonne?
a little
I don't think we heard
complicated.
from Yvonne either, but I had something else up on the screen, so I couldn't see everybody's faces. Anybody else that wanted to be a co-chair?
Is this just for like the next couple of months or for the entire 2 years?
I think maybe for now, we just set it at until we figure out our bylaws, just somebody to lead the ship.
So do you want me to write interim co-chairs?
Sure. And then, okay, so basically, yeah, I guess we should just do that. And then when it comes to voting, it's essentially, I think we can figure it out later.
Yeah, we'll have a way to vote on it in a couple months and we'll vote on it.
Sounds great.
That's good.
I like this.
Does anyone want to volunteer for secretary or do we start putting people up for that? Guys, I'm not a great secretary. Just gonna
I'm
put that
not
out there.
usually, yeah, I'm not going to be great at that either. I'm going to be honest.
I'll do it.
I was gonna say,
Bro,
Make everybody sit here and be uncomfortable. I'll do it.
Bro, you're gonna be great.
You, April.
I trust you.
Thanks for taking one for the team.
Seriously.
so April, I'll email you what I have. I mean, I'll type it up. You won't have to retype it or anything.
Okay.
I'll just
perfect.
email it to you. And then based on your memory, you can say, Lisa, I think you missed all of these things. And then we'll put them in there.
To be fair, it really helps that these are recorded and saved for later for right
That's
now.
true. That's true. Eric, do you know how will it be on the YouTube channel immediately?
I think it takes.
We should be able to, and Stephen, feel free to jump in if I've got this wrong, but I think we should be able to get this up tomorrow.
Okay, yeah,
That's no problem.
awesome. So
I'll upload it and then I'll email the group the URL for it.
So April, I'll go back and look at that before I send you what I typed up, and I'll write down the things that I missed.
Okay.
I have one other quick question, and maybe it's a please consider for the future. It's not like during this time of bylaw writing, but maybe at some point, like March, we could ask or invite Eric or another appropriate staff person to give us an overview of the city. Like I don't know anything about the departments, and how many staff are in the city, you know, like policies. I really don't know anything.
Hiring practices.
Yeah.
Could we essentially set up like a Q&A with them where we have somebody, we can just ask them all the questions? Is that something we could do?
Speaking for staff, sure. One starting point, if you're interested, and it is online, that you can look into the structure of the city, et cetera, is the city budget. It's got organizational charts, it's got numbers of employees in each department, things like that. So that would be a starting point maybe, but then sure, I mean, if you would like us to come and do that, and
so
would probably
the
be
city
helpful to
budget
have
is
questions ahead
definitely,
of time, just so we don't get stumped at the meeting, but sure, if that's, we'll be happy to do that. Yeah.
so I've definitely reviewed the budget. It is like what, 264 pages?
Yeah, but some of the things you're
but-
interested in as far as structure and all are much
It
fewer
does,
pages.
yes. It does break everything down. But it is quite long. It's a fun read, guys. Fun read. I've read it all.
Where does it live on the website?
I just typed in North Kansas City budget,
Oh, okay.
and it
And
popped up.
we can send you a link for that.
Thank you.
So before we break, I just kind of wanted to so maybe I should have done this at the beginning, but so the whole creation of this committee came about because there were some, there were just some key issues that we were noticing. It started with a small little community group. April was in that group as well. And we had some issues, and we didn't quite have a way to necessarily easily voice those concerns to council, to the government, whatever. So it did definitely start as like a small community group and then kind of developed into this. But some of those like key issues, should I say, were like communication. We wanted more open communication between the city and the people, and we wanted the people to be able to actively be involved in these decision-making processes, more so than they are now, which included things like a community forum, etc., which we did. We pushed for one. We got that police and fire forum, or I think it was just the police,
Yeah.
which was awesome. I loved that, and we definitely want some more of that. But a lot of these things like fall onto us, and there is, I guess I just want to be clear that there is definitely sort of already a game plan. So while we are creating it, there has already been discussion with members of the community as far as things they would like to see this committee do. Like I said, what was it, like more protections for renters? That wasn't even on my radar as something that we would potentially do. But enough concerns were brought forth by city members. I walked through one of our neighbors' homes, me and Bryant. So we had a member or a community member in Ward 1 who essentially reached out, or maybe just ran into Bryant's wife, Vanessa, I don't know. Anyways, had a lot of just so many issues with her house that she was renting, and no way to enforce any sort of protections. Like the landlord basically said, you're on your own, and there was really no enforcement. So there was really nothing to protect her. So that sort of became something that we will probably address. But I just wanted to So another big issue was looking at our governing bodies, which were pretty homogenous by nature. They were mostly middle-class white people. We don't have a lot of diversity in our governing bodies, and we definitely don't have a lot of diversity in our police force. And these are the kinds of things that kind of like prompted the creation of this committee, because we really wanted solutions to problems that it didn't seem like anybody else was currently solving.
Or even
So anyways,
aware
I
of.
just wanted to throw that out there. Like, that's where this all came from. I feel like we maybe should have started with that. But like I said, April was there. She knows the process, the fun of getting this all started. But
That
there's definitely
information-
there's some things we want to do. And I know Tara said earlier, like it's slow progress, but also we found, especially with that little neighborhood group, like there were things that we wanted, and we were told by a couple of our council members, like, yeah, you guys want that. You're probably not going to get it anytime soon. And guess what? We made it happen because we got enough community members involved and vocal and active that we did push it through like somewhat quickly, which included like repealing a city ordinance that allowed for neighbors to essentially murder another neighbor in the act of preventing a crime. But things like that. So like, yes, it is going to take time, but there are definitely ways that when we get the community involved, which is a huge goal of this, that we can do things a little faster. And it is definitely about creating that bridge between the city government and the community, which falls on our shoulders. And I just kind of wanted to like explain the importance of that. That was one of the main goals, is we are here to create a bridge.
Jessica, do you guys have do you have an outline of some of those things? And maybe this was somewhere else. Could we look at those, or could I see those at some point?
I can definitely.
That'd be really
I don't know
helpful.
if you guys have so whoever has Google Docs, or I can add you guys all on most of those Google Docs that we use to either create this committee or some of the things we were doing before. There's also a lot of good. So like Bryant DeLong sent me something that I can't quite remember what it's called, but it's like Young Officials something. And it's essentially a giant running list of YEOs, whatever that is, Young something officials. But it's literally a long running list of things that other people are doing in other cities currently, either in response to some of like the civil unrest, things like that. But it's a really awesome tool to like look at that, because it definitely breaks it down and like what they were doing, whether it's education related, police department related, policy related. But it's definitely these kind of progressive, like these progressive moves that other cities are making. And it definitely gives us kind of like a, oh, that's cool, we could do it, like a guideline, and then it would fall on us to figure out how we do it. But there's like a lot of those things. So yeah, there is definitely a lot of information I can add you guys in on from whenever this all started. But yeah, that's it.
Can I add something really quickly? And Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, but I just want to remind you that the Sunshine Law would also pertain to mass group emails. So it's fine to email that out, but then we can't all be emailing each other about it. Does that make sense?
Okay.
You could send it all out.
So I can't just include them all in the Google Docs so they have the ability to
No,
view
you
it?
totally can. You totally can.
Okay.
What I'm saying is then we couldn't all start problem solving on a group email, because that would be all of us communicating about it. Sending it out, not a problem. But I just wanted to tell you ahead of time, if you send it out and then we all want to discuss it, it's still the rule of 3. So everybody can have the info. Let me know if I'm wrong about that, but I believe
I think you
that's-
have that exactly right, Lisa. You can
Okay.
send out information for everybody to look at, but just refrain from discussing it until you're having an open meeting.
Okay.
So
As
you could
far
send
as-
something out and then I could say, hey, I think we should probably talk about that at the meeting, and then we'll put it on the agenda. Or go ahead, Gabby.
Just 2 very quick questions. I am trying to find the budget. And I see the 2019-20 budget. Is that the last published budget?
and I'm sorry, I'm not online, right? I mean, I'm not
So it's
looking at the website,
it's
but no,
okay.
the last, we should have, and I'll make sure to send a link to you. The fiscal year we are in now is fiscal year 2021. So
And is it
we should
January to
have that.
December fiscal year or July to June fiscal year?
Our fiscal year is actually October to September, October 1st
Okay.
to September 30th. So it's October 1st, 2020 to September 30th, 2021. And that should be up and online. And if it's not, I'll make sure it is, but we will send you a link to it so you have the most up to date.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
so
have to
I-
agree with Gabby. I can't find it online either.
Well,
I
gosh,
have
if
the
we have failed to do that,
2019.
then if we failed to do that, then I'm embarrassed and we'll make sure to get it up there.
No, it's on here. Yeah, I've got it.
You find
pulled
it?
up.
Okay.
And it's the 2021? Okay, I probably just didn't look far enough, but I just wanted to make sure I was in the right direction. And
I
then
put the link in the chat. I think that's the right one.
the other question is maybe a follow-up to what Jess is giving a little bit of the context of how this group got started. I think if we could maybe next time we get together on our agenda, so I guess this is my ask to the co-chairs, our next agenda, could we understand what brings each of us to this work? Because I think that helps inform our direction. If I'm here just because the mayor appointed me, I don't mean that badly for whomever was appointed by the mayor, but you come to this work with a different level of commitment than if you sought it out from your councilwoman, or maybe you've had your own experience in the community. So I think that just might be good for us to know what each other's, what brings us to this work from each other. So maybe just as a little icebreaker activity for our next meeting or something.
I second that. Love that as a diversity committee. It would be awesome to know where we're all coming from.
Yeah.
Lisa, just a quick question. I know we talked about potentially like breaking out into smaller groups to do more formation on our different bylaw articles. If we were to put that in an email and have people say like, I want to work on this one, does that count as information that would need to be made public, or is that like assignment of
I wouldn't
responsibilities?
think that would be a problem. Just when you actually go to work on it, just make sure it's 3. Because I actually was just
Okay.
getting ready to ask, did we have our people that are working on it? I know Gabby offered to edit.
I think it was me, Bess, and Brandy. Am I correct
You,
there?
Bess and Brady, are you guys taking on then probably the whole thing, or are you going to be like putting out?
I mean, like I said, I already have like a full outline for all of those things that we discussed. I would like, maybe there were a few of them that need to go in, but I can just type that up and send it to them. And then we can, so us 3 can like send information back and
Talk your
forth,
hearts
right?
out. Yeah, you can just go
Okay, and
discuss
then
it
they
all
can
you
just
want.
add and subtract and, okay.
Okay.
So
Yep.
like that.
So we could hop on a Zoom call or meet up if we wanted to.
Mhm.
Yep.
I think just as long as it's 3 of us and not 4.
It's
Okay.
just then if like Tara walks by, you'll have to say, go away, Tara. We're doing very
You're
important
shunned.
work only for 3 people. Okay, so it sounds like we all know what we're going to be doing for next meeting. You guys are working on the bylaws. You're going to email out if you need help or want someone else to do a section of it, correct?
Okay.
And
So as far as that's concerned, how do we get input from all of you then? Or is that just at the next meeting? So we
we'll have
essentially,
to hash
us
that out.
3.
It's a draft. It's a draft.
Mhm.
And you could publish that draft along with the agenda, and we could all read it as well as everyone in the public, and we can have our notes, and it's a working document because that's a draft. And then when we have our meeting, like Gabby could say, well, I think, or April could be like, well, I think it's important to add. So the idea would be that when it was ready to go, that it would be published along with the agenda, open to the public, which includes us.
Okay, awesome.
And then
So
we discuss it. Oops, sorry.
it's kind of a technicality question, but so that group of 3, are they allowed to do that shared work in Google Docs and do that sharing of written documents? And then are we allowed to go in and make a comment there, or does that have to be public?
I don't think you can comment, no.
So
Okay.
for review purposes for them to see that.
Mhm.
So
Because
there's
that
no
would
way
be,
to essentially spend the month, because we have a whole month in between now and the next meeting. So there's no way that like us three can prepare like a draft, post it or whatever, and then basically come back at our next meeting and just kind of like vote on it because everybody else has already like edited it, or no, we can't do that.
well, I mean, if you want to get people's input, then you'd have to let us talk about it in the meeting. And if you don't want to wait a month to do it, we could call a special meeting in 2 weeks, possibly. Or we could wait the month. I don't know how long it's going to take you guys to do it, or,
I was actually gonna ask or talk to the group, since we know we have all this work to do and we're just essentially the charter of this, we probably shouldn't be meeting twice a month.
I might agree with this, not to mention, like I said, in running for city council and also in partially creating this committee, there's just a lot that I want to establish before having to potentially leave in April if I were to win. And I don't know if 4 meetings between now and then is really going to be enough.
I know that's a time commitment for everybody, but
I don't know.
so new.
Go ahead.
Heard. I mean, I'd like something to do because I'm new to all of this. I have no idea what any of you are talking about. So I'd like maybe some homework. I mean, what should I do? You know, maybe Jessica help you with something if you're eventually going to be leaving. Maybe show me something you're talking about. Maybe can I meet with you on one-on-one? Maybe, you know, to talk about some of the stuff.
Absolutely, whenever. I don't know if you have my phone number, but I can email it to you.
Okay.
I have a
But it's-
question.
Because I
Oh,
don't
sorry,
want,
go ahead.
yeah, be out for a whole month and not, you know what I mean?
I feel like a month is sort of a large gap to not do anything. And if we
Right.
can't communicate at all, then we can't
Right.
really like do anything.
Right. Mhm.
I put my number in the chat just in case we all need to, not all of us together.
hey, hold on just a second. I don't know. I mean, on my side, the chat pops up on the screen. This is going to be
Oh,
published
well,
on a
my
YouTube
numbers are
channel.
public. Oh,
You undo that, Brandy?
yeah, delete
Hit the delete button.
Can that be
I was
redacted?
halfway through.
Maybe it doesn't. I don't know, Stephen. Do the pop-ups, do the text alerts pop up on the recording?
I honestly have no idea.
It's usually
I
part of
guess
the
we'll find out,
transcript.
Brandy.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll find
You'll
out.
be the first.
Oh.
I would suggest not putting any identifiable information in.
So I have a question. Instead of maybe meeting formally as a whole group again, possibly could we break the bylaws up into 2 groups so there's 2 smaller groups meeting? So we're trying to coordinate groups of 2 or 3 instead of a whole group again. in
But
the
then
next
we're all
month.
looking at the work that way, like we're all looking at it.
Yeah, then we're, I mean, like you could, maybe there's a group that's working on the details of like what membership and the more basic information about like being a committee. And then, you know, Jess and Brandy and Bess are looking at more of the purpose and the mission and breaking it up that way.
Works
I
for
think-
me.
I don't mind that. I just think we still hit the same issue of then we have an entire month to wait before we all come back together, talk about it, edit those 2 separate parts, and then vote on it.
So how about
Versus-
the three of us get together, we form the bylaws. Then once we're done, we send it out, and then if it's okay, then we break it down into groups, and then they review it, and that group makes the changes to that section. It gives everybody a chance to participate in making, you know, and making a piece of them is in this too. I don't know how that sounds, but
No, I get it. And I don't hate that idea. And is that technically kind of a loophole? So if me, you and Bess me, Brandy and Bess get together, we come up with the whatever part of it, draft. Could we then potentially hand it off to another group of 3 who reviews it? And then, so basically we're not all getting together at any given time and having this, but we do have separate groups of less than 4 people who edit it that way. Before we come back next month, we can just vote on it. Or actually, when we come back next month, we can just vote on it. Is that possible? Do we know?
It seems kind of fishy to me, to be.
I would
perfectly
say
honest with you.
no. And your very last sentence on that is what gives it away. Then we can come back and just vote on it. That's not how it's supposed to work. So we're supposed to talk
discuss
about
it.
it.
Vote on it, but
We're
like,
supposed to talk about it publicly. So it would be,
That's valid.
I mean, that is a fancy loophole, but I think it's probably not in the spirit of the law.
okay.
Could we just propose a calling of a special meeting in 2 weeks' time to review the draft? And then we can vote on it on the 7th or the 4th.
4th.
Yeah.
For next month.
And that way it's just one extra special meeting to review the work that you guys have done and to, weigh in and whatnot. And then we can go back to our monthly cycle.
I like this. But I also want to add, I don't think this is going to take us, it's not a huge undertaking. It should be pretty quick and simple to just draft this up and then discuss it and be done with it. I don't think we should be spending a ridiculous amount of time on the bylaws. And as you said earlier, it's been done before. We're not reinventing the wheel. We're basically just taking what's been done and making it work for us.
So then
Okay.
it sounds like we're
2 weeks.
suggesting doing an additional meeting on January 21st.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yvonne, go ahead.
Yeah, Jess, it just sounds like you have all this already written up. I'm not trying to be mean or sound rude. It's just that it sounds like you already have it written up and that these two girls are going to help you maybe go over something you've already written up, that you want the bylaws to be this way, kind of, instead of maybe splitting it up and like the other girls say, give these 3 people this job, give these 3 people these 3 sections, you know what I mean? And then kind of
I get that. I just don't know if it takes that much work. I genuinely think if Bess wanted to just write out a draft, I think she could probably, given the time, I don't know what your time looks like, Bess, but I just mean, it's not a huge, we're literally just taking what somebody else has done. It's an outline. We're making an outline and it really shouldn't, so other than the discussion part, so all I did, so basically what I wrote out, it's not mine. I did exactly what Gabrielle is talking about, was I went and looked at other cities' equity and inclusion committees or diversity boards, looked at their bylaws, and then essentially cannibalized it, picked out what we might use, and then literally wrote it into a really simple draft. And literally I
we did the
that.
same thing for the ordinance. So
Yep.
we looked at lots of examples and we picked out what
worked.
And that's how we wrote the ordinance.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Bryant is who I'm saying by we, sorry.
And to add to that, everybody's gonna have a chance to speak on it.
Mm-hmm.
and give it into, okay, yeah.
We're working as a team. But tell us what they want out, what they think will look better, that type of thing. It's about all of us collectively.
So when we meet in 2 weeks, whatever draft is thrown on the table, then essentially we are all going to look at it and, pick it apart, decide I don't necessarily think this. And then we all will come to an agreement on it. So, and I just don't really know. Go ahead.
Yvonne, when the agenda comes out and the draft is going to be attached to the agenda, and we should all have each other's emails, and then we'll email each other our phone numbers. You can call anyone except those 3. You can't call those 3.
Okay.
But if you wanted to work with April or Tara or Gabby, reading through that to have your notes, if you wanted to look at that with someone else on the committee, it's totally fine.
Before we met, so we can
Before
have,
you meet, yeah, because it's going to be public. It's going to be out there for everyone to read, and you can talk to anyone except for Brandy, Bess, and Jessica.
so then
But
just-
me and Yvonne can still get together to talk about other things, correct?
Yeah, you can talk about other stuff, but
Alright.
but the bylaws themselves, you can call anyone in the entire world except for those people, those 3.
Okay, so yeah, Jess, okay, so we'll have to, yeah, okay.
Yvonne,
Yeah,
I'd really like
and
to
I'm-
get together with you and then we can just kind of go over
Talk
where
about
the
other
talk
stuff,
came
yeah.
from. Yeah.
But
I'd love to break all that down.
Yeah. So that would be a way to kind of like review it with someone else before the meeting came. Okay, so it sounds like, if it's okay, I don't know, Eric, if we need to request a meeting in 2 weeks. Do we send that request? Would we send that to you or Crystal, or is this the request?
I hear the request. We'll
Oh,
go ahead and
okay.
notice up. We'll notice up the meeting on Thursday, January 21st at 7 p.m. Right?
Yes.
Okay, we'll do it.
Okay, so before next week, is there an, or sorry, not before that meeting, because that's focused on this, but before our next official meeting next month, like what do we need to do to wrap up here, guys? Like, and everybody, as in like, what are some things we need to leave remembering, I guess? What do we want to?
So then I think what next steps would be, Brandy, and do you prefer Jessica or Jess?
Either works, whatever is easiest. I'll go by Jess since it seems to be what most people refer to
It will
me as.
probably be, it'll be that way because I'm Bess and that's
Bess and
just
Jess. I
what
get it.
people do. But if you prefer Jessica, it is your name, it is your
I have
identity, and that
zero
matters.
preference.
That's why we're here.
Whatever you
so-
want to call me. I have
So
a
Brandy,
9-year-old,
Jessica,
so-
and I will be coming up with a time for us to meet to solidify a draft of bylaws.
Okay.
We will then get that out. It sounds like 24 hours before our meeting at minimum.
I think we can do it anytime. Yeah, as long as it's just, it has to be, yeah. So
At
if we
least
got it
24
done in
hours.
3 days, then we could submit it then with the agenda for the next meeting.
Great.
And then
And
I think
Eric,
that's available.
Eric, would you like us to submit the agenda and the attached documents to you or Crystal, or who would we give that to?
If you give it to me, I'll make sure that the city clerk, Crystal Doss, gets it. So why don't you go through me?
Okay.
Great. So then once that information gets sent out, everyone's job will be to review it prior to January 21st. So that on January 21st, we can dive into discussion, but we'll obviously have an agenda that Brandy and I put together for that.
Perfect.
Great.
Yep,
Okay.
and one more thing, we're all coming back to the next meeting with what brings us to this committee.
Mhm. And then I'd like to add to that, could we also, so I think I mentioned it in an email previously, like what are some things that you would like to see bettered in North Kansas City? Like things that would fall into like our scope of what we might do, but like essentially, what are some things that you would like to see get done? Like I know I have literally a running list of things that I would love for this committee to eventually get to, but that doesn't really matter. We're a committee of a bunch of people. So like what are all of our, like with where we come from, but also like what we might want to see get done. So like some
And did
ideas essentially.
Did I misspeak? Do we want to do that at the special meeting, or do we want to do that in a month?
I would say in a month, in my
In a month.
opinion.
Okay,
And let's
okay.
stick to
Yeah,
strictly
after I said it, I
bylaws.
thought it's the special meeting. We probably don't want to do it there. So in a month, okay.
Excellent.
But don't worry, I'm a teacher, so I have tons of energizers for us.
Okay.
Great.
I think
And I
we
think-
did great, guys. This was really, I loved meeting all of you guys. This was a long time in the making, and watching it come together and meeting every single one of you and seeing how like clearly you guys are all super invested and really care, and just kind of getting an idea of like, man, we're going to do some things. I'm excited. I really like it.
Our world is in such a unique place. It is awesome to see North Kansas City take control of
Mhm.
diversity and inclusion efforts. So applause to the community and the city council for that.
For sure.
Feel good. So would one of our co-chairs like to officially in the meeting?
Bess, you want to do it?
We're already unmuted, but I guess we are officially done with our first meeting. It is 8:30 on Thursday night. Go have a good rest of your day.
Night,
All
guys.
right.
Everyone.
Yay,
Thank you, everybody.
thank you.
Thanks.